Good morning, everyone. Welcome to News Center Maine's Political Brew. Glad you could be with us. We're joined this morning by Ethan Strimling and Phil Harriman. Gentlemen, good to see you as always.
Good to see you, Pat.
Good morning.
Plenty going on. The Electoral College is going to vote on Monday in state capitals across the nation. Maine will give Joe Biden 3 electoral votes and Donald Trump 1. Now, this comes after the Supreme Court Friday night dismissed the bid led by Texas to overturn the election results in 4 swing states. 17 states were involved. More than 100 Republican congressmen signed on as well. President Trump thought that SCOTUS was his firewall, if you will. But in 2 cases now, no justice has expressed support for the idea of throwing out election results. So, Phil, I'd ask you, is this fight over?
Yeah, I think the blunt answer is, yeah, the president has exhausted, which is his right, all avenues to demonstrate that the election results were not accurate. He did not prevail. He's going to have to accept the final word. And it's interesting to note that the Supreme Court determined this on the basis that they said Texas did not have standing. They didn't opine on whether or not Texas's reason for filing the suit was legitimate. So the political side of this will carry on, and I think most Americans want to make sure that whatever regulatory or legislative action that needs to be taken to make sure that elections are accurate and fair, I think we all want that.
So do you think, Ethan, there are still unanswered questions about this?
I don't know. Do you have B-roll of the opera singer just singing her heart out? Because this baby is over. It is done. Look, it was over a while ago. I appreciate, Phil trying to give Donald Trump his props on this, but he's now failed 56 different court cases. It's really just been damaging to our democracy that he has tried to pursue this and overturn election results. The Supreme Court thoroughly threw this out. In terms of the administrative versus legislative, that was already thrown out by numerous courts. That is not an issue that still needs to be resolved in the United States of America. Thank goodness, it's over. Joe Biden won. Hopefully now the Republican Party will embrace these results. Monday will be the final nail when the Electoral College casts their ballots.
And closer to home, last month, Portland voters approved hazard pay for people who have to work in a civil emergency such as this pandemic. Some businesses are paying the hazard pay rate, but not all. Ethan, where does this go from here?
It's in the courts at this point. Really, the city council just made a terrible decision in saying that they were not going to enforce this. It left workers in the position of having to sue to get their hazard pay, left businesses in the position of being sued, having to possibly pay back wages. Businesses are really rolling the dice by not paying it now, because when and if the court rules in favor of the workers, which we fully expect they will, they're going to owe back wages. If any of their employees sue, they could owe damages. So I'm encouraging businesses everywhere, and thankfully dozens and dozens and dozens have. Pay the hazard pay now. If the court makes some other decision, you can go that direction then.
Phil, it seems like it's quite a mess at the moment.
Oh, it sure is. This is a good example of I'm here from the government and I'm here to help you. The crafters of this referendum left such ambiguity that the city council, as Ethan just acknowledged, has advised people that they don't have to pay it. Some are saying, well, we're going to pay it. It's a mess. It's got to be sorted out in the court. And we're already seeing some of the businesses in the city of Portland who've decided to go ahead and make that payment to workers. They're increasing their prices. So does this really lift all boats, or are we going to see some inflationary trends in the city of Portland relative to the rest of the greater?
Well, but Phil, let me just correct one thing real quick. There was already inflation in a lot of these stores, grocery stores, and workers were not seeing that. And there was no ambiguity in the language, but even if there was, the intent was very clear. Both sides agreed this was supposed to go into effect on December 5th. That was the intent of the voters. That's what should have been enforced by the city council.
All right. We learned this past week in reporting by the Press Herald that medical marijuana has become Maine's most valuable crop, partly because it's lockdown friendly. And now we're also seeing big business for recreational pot. Phil, it took a while, of course, 4 years from voter approval for recreational marijuana. But overall, do you think the marijuana industry is something that lawmakers and regulators have gotten right?
Yeah, I think by and large, the state of Maine, from a legislative and a regulatory point of view, were very thorough. Had an opportunity to experience some other states around the country how to get this right. I think by and large they did, but the big piece of this that's still unresolved is marijuana use is against federal law. It's time for Congress to decide once and for all, is this legal or not?
Ethan?
Yeah, Phil brings up a good point. And just this past week, the U.S. House of Representatives, Democratic controlled, buddy, just passed. This should be legalized. States should be allowed to do this. And look, the feds have not been stepping in any states where it's legalized, so I don't really think there's an issue. You know, time will tell. Getting back to your original question, Pat, obviously other states have legalized this before Maine did, so there's plenty of opportunity to see what they were able to do. But you did see, even in the city of Portland, they passed some regulations that then the people threw out because it really didn't allow the mom and pops to come in. Big business would have been the only ones that could have opened in the city.
On Friday, Governor Mills issued a new order banning anyone without a mask from being in any public establishment, requiring businesses and police to enforce it. Ethan, do you think this approach, it's fairly strong, is likely to get pushback from the legislature when they come back to work?
I hope not. I mean, I hope that we're through some of this pandemic before the legislature comes back to work. They're not coming back, obviously, until January at the earliest at this point. But this was very important. Doesn't even go far enough as far as I'm concerned. I understand that Janet Mills doesn't want to sort of move to where other states are, which is starting to have people stay at home again. And she did put forward the $600 payment into the unemployment. That's a huge, huge benefit for people. She deserves great kudos for making sure that that happens. But look, I mean, we're seeing 400 cases a day. We are just getting to a place where we have got to take dramatic action well beyond masks.
And Phil?
Oh, it just seems to me, Pat, that the governor has all of the power in her hands that was authorized through legislation. And I don't see the legislature forcing their way back into special session or even early in January, pulling that power away from her. She's now in a position where she's basically said, I've exhausted all of my executive authority with this last pronouncement, short of shutting down the economy again. And she's acknowledged that she doesn't want to do that. So I think she remains in control.
Down in Washington, COVID relief bill talks drag on. The Trump administration this past week offered a one-time $600 payment instead of the bipartisan proposal of an additional $300 per week in unemployment benefits. Meanwhile, Mitch McConnell offered to drop a provision to shield companies from lawsuits over COVID-related negligence in exchange for eliminating aid to state and local governments. Ethan, is a bill to actually provide help to Americans who need it the most even possible right now?
Boy, I hope so. You know, even Joe Biden is leaning in at this point and saying, look, do something, even though, you know, his administration won't get any credit for it. I think everybody understands. I mean, what Mitch McConnell is doing is just terrible. Understand that the liability he's trying to put into this bill is to basically say that businesses who are criminally negligent, who have caused their employees to get sick, should not be liable for that. And for that reason, he's holding up this entire bill. Look, good for the Trump administration to come forward with the $600 to everybody. That is right. But you also need to do what it is that we need for unemployment and state and local aid.
Phil?
You know, I partially agree with Ethan. I think this whole package should be focused on individuals and not businesses. It's the families who need this transitional support while we get this virus behind us. And frankly, I don't think Maine taxpayers want to see a bill that bails out states around the country for their financial mismanagement. And as what we're discovering now is that everybody, whether it's the House or the Senate or the President's got their own special view of how to solve this. I think we all have to come to one place, which is what do families and individuals need?
But states are people, right? I mean, the people in the state need the help.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that to me is so important to recognize. Look, I'm fighting hard to make sure that Phil Harriman doesn't have to pay more property taxes because the math is clear. If the federal government doesn't help the states are then going to stop helping the municipalities, and the municipalities will have to raise taxes. You know what it is that always flows downhill, and it's going to be on your property tax bill, Phil.
Turning to the Biden administration that's being cobbled together right now, President-elect Biden has chosen General Lloyd Austin to become Secretary of Defense, an historic choice. But should we insist on civilians to run the Pentagon, there's supposed to be a 7-year gap before an officer can become Secretary of Defense. It was waived for Jim Mattis, Donald Trump's first Secretary of Defense. Should it be here? Austin retired only 4 years ago, Phil.
I think they should. This regulation or law was adopted, I think, in the late 1940s. I understand then why it was important to make sure that we have a civilian running the Defense Department, but this is a highly qualified individual. I think 4 years is certainly long enough to distance yourself from the military-industrial complex, so to speak.
Ethan?
I think it's actually very important to bring civilians in, and I'm disappointed. I mean, obviously nothing against General Austin, but I do think that we need to be getting back to really having true civilians being defense secretary. It's kind of, really where our country was understanding that, you need civilian leaders, not military leaders who are running the country. It's a very important wall that you don't want to cross. So I'm a little disappointed bringing this one forward. I assume that he will get through, but I hope that future presidents do not see this as precedent.
The Justice Department is investigating the finances of President-elect Biden's son, Hunter, over business dealings with China, among other matters. Ethan, how much of a problem is this for the incoming president?
Yeah, it's a problem. This is lose-lose, no doubt about it. And if the Trump administration does not come to a conclusion that it needs to be prosecuted or not, before the Biden administration, there is no way. If they stop the investigation, he gets in trouble for that. If they're moving forward with the investigation, obviously it's looking bad for him. I would say to him, you have got to create some kind of special counsel, complete separation. There is simply no way when your son is being prosecuted by your Justice Department that it will not be seen as some kind of bias.
Phil?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with Ethan more. This is one of those stories that for some reason the national media didn't want to address during the campaign. Now the campaign is over, and clearly there's facts and circumstances that warrant this investigation. President-elect Biden, in his campaign, had already indicated that he would not step in the way of any Justice Department activities, that they needed to be distanced. But I don't think that's enough. I think Ethan's right. There should be a special prosecutor identified so that Joe Biden's presidency doesn't start off under this cloud of insider trading, so to speak.
All right, let's talk about our winners and losers in politics this week. Phil, you're up to bat.
My loser this week is Nancy Pelosi. It's clear now that she had no intentions of finding a relief package before the election, which put Maine families and others around the country in, just a tremendous amount of uncertainty. The winners this week are the people who continue to deliver to our doors. My goodness, the people who are getting food and Christmas gifts and mail and so forth. These people are keeping our economy moving along, and they're my winners this week.
Good call.
Yeah.
Ethan?
And they should get hazard pay, right, Phil? Especially if they're working in Portland. Those Whole Foods workers delivering you groceries. My winner of the week is Shenna Bellows, winning first woman ever to win Secretary of State. Very exciting. She's going to do a great job in that position. Really just an exciting moment for us. My loser of the week are all the families out there that are losing, no fault of their own, that are losing unemployment benefits because Congress won't act. They are definitely going to be suffering a great loss because of the inaction.
All right, Ethan Strimling, Phil Harriman, thank you for being with us today. We thank you for watching. News Center Maine is back after this.